Welcome to episode 70 of the Epic Classroom Podcast. I'm Trevor Muir, and this is where we explore how to make learning meaningful, dynamic, and transformative. Epic, so students don't just get through school, they thrive because of it. Today is a special episode. If you've been following the news lately, you've seen what's happening in the Twin Cities of Minnesota. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, ICE, has been conducting raids all over cities like Minneapolis and St. Paul. And to say it has been disruptive would be a massive understatement. There's been two very public killings of Renee Good and Alex Preddy, protests that have followed, but also many raids and arrests of undocumented and documented immigrants. There's a lot of fear and pain occurring in the Twin Cities right now. I've heard from so many educators that many students are afraid to come to school and are sheltering at home. I mean, the tension is palpable. Working in schools is already such challenging, complex work. And when you add this to all of it, it becomes that much more difficult and taxing. And I'll just say, this isn't a political podcast. I talk about students and teaching. But what's happening in Minnesota is greatly affecting students and teachers. And so we should talk about it. And so on today's episode, I've interviewed several educators who are teaching in the Twin Cities right now. I've invited them to share their stories and talk about what others should know about what they are going through. I think about the educators who showed up for my kids during the pandemic and helped bring a source of calm and stability during a crisis. They were some of the most essential people in our community during that time. And that's really a role educators serve in communities during a crisis every single time. And right now that's educators in the Twin Cities. So I talked to Katie, a special ed teacher in St. Paul Public Schools. I talked to Anthony, a middle school teacher in Minneapolis, and Amy, an administrator and second grade teacher in the Twin Cities. So let's dive in. Katie, I am so grateful you could take a little time to talk to me today. How are you doing right now?
We all ask each other as teachers that almost every day. And I think a lot of us just say, we're surviving.
Yeah, gosh. And surviving you are, and that's what anybody that I've talked to in the Twin Cities is like, yeah, we're just trying to get through here. Tell me first off, what do you teach? And tell me about the community that you teach in.
Yeah, so I teach in St. Paul. I actually live in the community I teach in as well. I live about 8 minutes from my school. I teach special education in a self-contained classroom. So what that means for those that don't know is that, my students might have a hard time in the general education classroom. And so they spend a big chunk of their day here with me. And a lot of the things that right now, actually, half of my students are virtually learning. And half of them are here.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Just for those who don't know, why would they be doing virtual instead of being in person?
So a couple of weeks ago, and it's been on the radar for a while, but a few weeks ago with everything that's been happening with ICE and the absolute illegalities that they are doing, in our home, in our city, we have offered students to be able to virtually learn online. And, I actually was a teacher my very first year. I was not a special education teacher. I was a high school agriculture teacher. 2019 into 2020 was my very first year of teaching. So that was COVID.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. This is by far way worse than COVID. And I'll scream that from the rooftops. It's something that, and I was a first year teacher. I mean, straight out of college, I was 22 years old when I had to do that. And now I'm 28, and it's our union and our district are working together basically to make sure that our students have an option to virtually learn so that they can stay home and stay safe. And our district, we don't ask about immigration status because it's not our business. And it's also really important, I think, for us to make sure that we have that, safety net for our students, because they don't have a choice, and I think that sometimes that what we are struggling with this, virtual learning is that, we don't get to see our kids. And a lot of my students are nonverbal. can you imagine teaching a student over a camera who's nonverbal?
No, I can't.
With Yeah, and it's listen, I love my kids and I will do literally anything for them. I have gone to houses and done home visits. I have gone out of my way to set up GoFundMe's for people in our community. Right now our union set up an immigrant defense network, and so every single day at arrival and at dismissal we have parents standing on the corner with whistles, and we have codes for if they do see ICE activity because they are targeting parents at pickup.
Oh my gosh.
I mean, I see on Facebook all the time that a lot of people aren't thinking that it's a big deal, but I mean, we are literally, I mean, I have staff members who are of Latino descent, and they don't go outside by themselves anymore. We don't know what they would want to do. I think the other thing too is that St. Paul Public Schools is much like how America is and how America should be. It's a melting pot. It's filled with people from various cultures and various backgrounds. And it is so incredibly important for us to be able to embrace that and see that and love our culture. But because they have that culture, they are afraid to show it right now because they are being targeted because of their skin color or the language that they speak. I have heard videos and evidence of many different families who have gotten pulled over. We have had special education vans of students gotten pulled over just because they saw a few brown kids in the back.
Jeez. And like, how in the world are you supposed to teach the content of your class? Which, by the way, as teaching special ed, that's already an added layer of challenge to your work. How are you supposed to do that? Not just virtually, but then when they have all of this stuff hanging over them.
I think that what we've talked to parents about is that our students, they still get the services that they need, but that ultimately, more than anything else, it's important that you're safe. And I think that right now, the main thing that teachers are doing is just constantly communicating with parents. The other thing that I think is very unprecedented as well is that part of the reason why we're also really struggling right now is because last year, because of cuts in the Department of Education, our district alone lost $7.2 million, and therefore we're understaffed. And what we need more than anything right now is online teachers that can go and help our students and get them those things that we need. And the other thing is translators. It's huge. It's huge. I mean, in my school, we have 2 self-contained classrooms.
Okay.
And I'm kind of helping with both. And both of the self-contained classrooms, with all the kids that are virtual, there are 4 different languages between those just 6 kids.
So it's already a challenge. Like
Yeah.
you went into this crisis already in a semi-crisis. Like we're already out of funding. We don't have enough people. We've got these logistical things that could be solved with more staff.
Yes.
But then you
Very much
throw in this
so.
layer of half of your students aren't even there in person.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know how are they hanging? I mean, are you able to touch base with them or check in or see how they're doing
Yeah,
emotionally?
I talk to them every day. I am online with them like in the morning we have morning meeting, and we do try to keep it as normal as possible for them, because I teach special education, but even kids that are in the general education classroom, they know what's happening. It's scary. I mean, I'm sorry, it's just really, it's an emotional time, but I had a parent that one of my kiddos, his mom doesn't speak very good English, and she was just telling him that it's dangerous to go outside and to go to school, and he was like, but I want to go be with Miss Brown. And it just breaks your heart, because it's not fair to them. I also have multiple students. I also help run the morning program at my school. So there's a bunch of us that kind of do different days of the week. And the first day that I did it was a couple of weeks ago, because I just recently started it. And the first thing that one of my students in there said is, I am a citizen. I have been a citizen since I was 7 years old, and I was born here. Because she felt like she needed to tell me that it's kids should not have to deal with this. They should be kids. this truly, it's not political. This is a human rights issue. It's not political. It's truly not. And we've had ICE around for many, many, many years, and yet right now, this is where we're getting. So it's not just, you know. So I mean, we've got parents every day who volunteer. We've got,
Mm,
I mean, we basically have signs on our doors that say you are not allowed to enter without a warrant.
mm.
Everything around our school is closed. Restaurants are closed. Kids aren't showing up to school at all, and sometimes they're having a hard time with technology. I mean, it's terrifying.
It sounds like your community's pretty bought in. It sounds like there's some cohesion happening with you and the other educators, but then also parents. Is that accurate?
I will say that, we have come together as quite a team as a
Mm.
district. We have come together as quite a team because we all know that this is completely unprecedented. It's something that we have no idea how to navigate, and we're just trying to figure it out the absolute best that we can to provide the best ways for our students because they are the ones that matter
Yeah.
above everybody else in our community. I mean, we have parents that are showing up and trying to make sure that, and I went to a taco shop down the street because I wanted to support a local Mexican restaurant, and they
Hmm.
have a white person sitting at the door locking and unlocking the door every single time somebody comes in. Like it's unreal the changes that have had to be made in order to protect the businesses and protect the kids, you know.
Oh, I mean, my heart breaks for your students because like scary that must be to have to be home and knowing that you've got classmates still at school. I mean, are you
Mm-hmm.
working with younger kids too?
Yeah, so I totally forgot to mention my age range. I
Yeah.
teach kindergarten, first and second graders.
Oh,
So the student in question that told me that she was a citizen was
hmm.
7.
seven
So,
years old. And how do you explain this to them?
you
Like, how
know,
do you articulate what's going on and why you have to stay home and why there's somebody unlocking the door to the restaurant? Like, how do you even put words to that?
well, for us, what we talk about with our kids is, we leave it up to the parents because the parents truthfully are the ones that are, making that decision.
Hmm.
One of my students told me that they're staying home because they don't want the bad police to get them.
Yep.
And so,
Mm.
truthfully, and we've talked, and our district has been really good about sending out, emails and stuff to see, because like I said, most of my students are pretty nonverbal. And
Hmm.
so it's, we try to make it as normal as possible, is essentially how it works, and when parents feel like they need to mention that to their kids, then that's what they do.
Okay. So you're kind of having to suppress it a little bit, or
Yes.
just like, hey, I've got to just put on a face, even if I'm not
Yes.
feeling it.
Yeah.
Is that what
Because,
everybody's doing?
yes, I mean, and all of us teachers, we all understand and know that the way that we are affected by this is because we understand the world and we are understanding why that this is happening. Well, maybe not why, but
Yeah.
we understand that it is happening. But our students, especially with younger kids, I mean, they don't quite grasp it,
Hmm.
So what we do is we teach them safety protocols. We teach them, we the ways that we can, the ways that we can protect them when something happens, So, but I mean, we have outdoor recess, and we've been considering not sending kids out to recess at this point. I mean, there's raids that are happening blocks from our school. They have taken members. They have tried to detain students before. They pepper sprayed kids after trying to detain a teacher in Minneapolis.
I was talking to an educator earlier who half of her students are going to school virtually right now because their families are afraid to leave the house. Has that been your experience? Or have you seen that?
Identical situation. We've had to turn it around like it was in COVID, but this is, for those of us that remember that, we've had to like go back to that ship to being in a, I'm teaching kids, but only a small fraction of what I have now, maybe down to a third from what I normally, or even less, and doing a Google Meet, showing the activities. I've had to go from science you cannot teach virtually.
Mm-hmm.
So I've had to make adaptations, spend extra hours outside of my contractual time, but I do it because I want to be able to be an advocate, a representative of my students in my communities and my school and my colleagues. Um, we're all carrying a huge load. The stories that were being, I can't get into the specifics of who, but the fear is there. You can feel it in the building, the interactions between the students. Some of them can keep, a smile on, and some of them are just very quiet.
Mm,
And it's not because of what we're saying, because I know I'm seeing what I'm very disturbed by is the way now we see information being divulged,
mm-hmm.
the demonization. I'm like, these are human beings. You're associating me with that. There's even a story of a ICE presence in our parking lot in our building.
Mm,
Can't get into the specific which one it was, but we've had to have security and administration ask them to leave our permit parking, not public permit, because they just wanted to be there. And there's a huge sign. 2 weeks ago, we had a presence of a car that doesn't have a registration in our parking lot for teachers and staff. So imagine as I'm talking about it, I'm getting nervous
of course.
because that now started to feel way beyond what the news is reporting. It's not the same thing as like it looks bad, but it feels bad because every day you don't know what's going to happen. It's also now cemented in our daily thoughts. What we're reading, what we're seeing does not match what we're living and absorbing from minute to minute. There's so many things that we're finding out. This is unprecedented. I was very reserved at the beginning when this started, but when we got testimony stories from students, the stories from families, from our own colleagues, this is not immigration enforcement. This is something else. The
Mm,
word that I can use very appropriately, staying developmentally, academically appropriate, is this is an occupation. They've been outside of our schools very intentionally. And the sight of boots on the ground with them armed, it also makes you feel very uncomfortable because why are you here? And you're again visiting a place that is a private parking, not public. There are public spaces around their school, but permitted specifically. And if you're not there authorized, they can't tow your truck, but we have to alert. We've already had twice presence in that part of our school. And it's not only just happening to us. Our other immersion language programs are also being targeted. So
and
it's no, this is surreal. This is, like I said before, it's an occupation.
yeah.
We're here for our students, our families. We're even doing food drives to help them because they are afraid of leaving their homes. And here's the other part that's super important. And thanks for listening and facilitating
Mm-hmm.
this. US citizens have been stopped, taken because of a physique, a color of skin. Excuse me, we're supposed to be advocating the same thing when we're in a classroom, not to discriminate based on any of the categories that they're demonizing online. I don't want to mention them because it's the human part of our society, of our cultures, of our communities. Come on. And then they were released. And one of them shared with me, oh, it's because I look kind of Hispanic looking. Due process is not happening. It isn't. And I wanted to get this out because I'm really worried about what's going to happen next. Because each day they say, oh, there have been some changes post Alex Preddy. But that hasn't stopped the patrols and the operations that are taking place, whether it's in my community where I live or if it's around it. It's anyway, feeling it, leaving it comes in pale comparison to what we're witnessing in Minnesota.
So, like you say, you work with second graders.
I do.
How do they process and hold this type of thing? I mean, how do you explain this to a second grader about what's happening?
Um, it's really, really, really hard. That's a great question. It's really hard to dance between honoring their feelings and who they are and where they're coming from in this moment and not scaring or alarming them.
Mm,
So we've been trying to meet them where they're at by asking more like open-ended questions that don't alarm kiddos that aren't alarmed.
hmm
And then still allow students to come into the space and share how they're feeling if they are worried or they are aware or they are having to shelter at home and they know what's going on. So it's a really delicate dance, and I think it's just about meeting the kids where they're at.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
where would you say a lot of them are at right now?
Well, because I'm currently teaching over 100 second graders, and that's just second grade. Um, and so I would say, and they're all from families who have chosen to keep them at home for one reason or the other. In this current climate we have in Minnesota, I would say that they're worried, they're afraid, they might not be having income, they don't have access to proper food or other supplies. They are not really leaving their home. They are having a lot of folks in their home. But we're taking care of each other, and I think that's really important that is noted. Like in Minnesota, we have really, really been so aware
Mm.
to come together and have each other's backs. Like it really is a collectivism that I really haven't ever seen before. That's super inspiring.
Do you feel like you're still able to teach, or that the teachers you're working with also, are they like, do you feel like kids are still learning reading skills? And
Uh, yes and no. We're learning too as
Mhm.
teachers. We're learning how to do this, and we're learning how to work and communicate with each other and share the load and help each other out, And I was just meeting with a special education teacher because we were talking about like how to set up breakup rooms with her kiddos when she comes to the gen ed meet and
Mm.
how is that going to look? And so we're all working it out as we go. And I think, I don't, I think the most important thing is for these kids and these families to know that we're here for them. We care about them. We see them. We honor their experiences. And I'm not sure how many of us are capable right now of doing much more than surviving.
Mm.
So I think that's okay if we're just taking care of our scholars and their families and letting them know that we're there. So that's kind of where we're at. We're
Wow.
definitely teaching what's being
Mhm.
absorbed and what's capable of being absorbed. I'm not sure, but that's okay because we're in survival mode. All kids, regardless of their parents' immigration status, have a right to education.
Mm.
And all students, regardless of what their parents may or may not have done, all have a right to feel safe. So it's really, really hard when it feels like innocent children are being targeted.
Yeah,
Hmm.
absolutely. And their families and just
Yes, and their families. And most of these families are documented. They
Mhm.
are here legally, but that doesn't seem to matter right now. So it's very scary.
That is scary. Yeah. I mean, like teaching's already hard, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Especially
Hmm.
when you live in the north in the winter and you're having
Oh, on
indoor
top of it,
recesses and
yes. Oh, yeah, we are getting that too. Like, I don't think Mother Nature is giving us the indoor recess every day here, so it is brutal.
well, and so you also work with teachers. How are your
I
teachers
do. Not great. Not great. Yeah, this is a heavy, heavy load. And as you said, like teaching without this is a heavy load,
doing?
right? It's emotionally and physically and mentally taxing. And we care so much. That's why we went into teaching, right? We care so much about other people and we care so much about our students and families. So I think it's a lot of firsthand and secondhand trauma,
Mm.
that teachers are experiencing. It is a lot of exhaustion and working extra hours like we do normally, but even more now where it's like delivering food to families after contract hours. There's amazing, sad but true, like grassroots stuff going on at our buildings where we are on our own time and with our own mutual aid collected funds. We are collecting groceries and toiletries and school supplies for our families, and we are delivering to them and hooking them up with mutual aid to pay their rent. So there's a whole other component going on now for teachers where it's something they certainly don't have to do, but how can we not?
Right.
So,
Well, and it's what you've always done.
right. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It feels like teaching's always been this, oh, I've got to adapt to the next thing.
For sure.
And this
Yep.
is a really big thing to
Yeah.
adapt to.
It's really heavy. And I think when kids don't show up, that's really scary.
Yeah,
That's really scary for teachers because we worry about our students. And so
of course.
it's hard. Mm-hmm.
I remember when my kids were, when we were going through COVID and the pandemic, like some of the only sources of stability, because everything else was up in the air, were my kids' teachers. And they were stability for us at home as parents, but then
Yeah.
they were also stability for our kids. And like,
Mhm.
all right, there is this person that I see every day, and they still have discipline, and they're still
Right.
all of these different things. Would you say that's part of your role as a teacher right now, is creating some type of
Oh,
stability?
for sure. I do feel really good about that. Yes, being that person that's there on a predictable basis with a predictable routine, and I keep reassuring them like this is just like we're in the building. We're going to have our morning meeting,
Okay.
and we're going to do our greeting and we're going to share and we're going to play a game and then we're going to have math just like we do in the building and we're going to take a break. And we're going to have phonics, just like we do in the building. So yeah, I think just being that predictable person for not only the kids, but for families too.
I got a letter, just now that you mentioned it, I got a letter written by one of my students. It almost broke me to tears because I had to withhold it. Thank you for coming every day, because I know that we're all so scared, but you're always trying to shine a light, find a moment for us to laugh about anything aside from science.
Mm.
I want you to know that you are seen and acknowledged. So it's just to continue to add versus just leaving that effect of crickets being constantly there. So just filling the void with positivity, even though on the inside I'm totally feeling the opposite still. And I know I'm not the only one that's doing this with our classrooms. We're all finding unique ways. I think we're very versatile.
My philosophy in teaching is teach with love always, and it's something that, a lot of teachers are we just trying to love our kids and show them the support that they need while also trying to manage academics and the rigorous curriculum that we have, on top of all that,
that's what's so, I think that's what people on the outside don't understand is like in the midst of all of this, you still have like teacher evaluations, right?
Mhm.
Like your kids still have to take their assessments and see that they're progressing. They still have to do all of this stuff mandated by the state and the federal government while you're also trying to help them feel like, hey, there's some scary things going on. I'm trying to help you feel safe. Or, hey, I'm just trying to teach you language and writing skills and how to feel belonging. And like, I'm trying to do this in the midst of all that's going on.
I think that the biggest thing that we're trying to do is create a sense of normalcy. But I mean, you've got kids with, special education or disabilities that are really struggling with this new routine and new adjustment. And just in general, being a kid trying to deal with this, they're like, why? And, we are doing, we're doing our best to explain it to them. But I think that they understand more than anything else that we're all in this together and, we're just trying to get through it to keep them safe because ultimately, above all else, is keeping those babies safe and making sure they're loved.
Thanks for listening to this special episode of the Epic Classroom Podcast. And of course, a special thank you to Katie, Anthony, and Amy for your honesty, your vulnerability, and the bravery to share your story with all of us. We are all with you in this in spirit, deeply hoping that this crisis ends soon and that you can get back to some normalcy while you teach and care for your students. And whoever you are listening to this podcast, thanks for the good work you do for your students as well. If this is your first time listening to the Epic Classroom Podcast, I invite you to subscribe and get all of the latest episodes. My name is Trevor Muir. Talk to you next time.